Hi, my name is Cassandra Solano. I have been doing extensive research on how the role of socioeconomics affects the high school dropout rate. This question is directed to Professor Amado Fadia and Mr. Tom Moore. Dr. Kevin Scanley, the superintendent of the Palo Alto Unified School District, stated several months ago that, quote, "It's just not possible for the average kid who comes to this country in 7th or 8th grade or even 3rd grade without a word of English, and parents with little formal education to match the achievement levels of kids whose mom has a PhD in English from Stanford and can afford to stay home and spend time supplementing the education of her kids," unquote. What is your opinion on what was said? Do you think this is true? If not, what are some ways the achievement gap can be closed?
I think the superintendent, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe Barbara can correct me, I think he's apologized for those words, or at least self-corrected himself for those words. And I think that it's socioeconomic status makes a difference in education, in part because it also determines what schools you can, what communities you live in, what schools you can attend, the kinds of extra supports that parents with higher socioeconomic status can provide to their children. So they do all kinds of things that are not just what happens during the school day, but they can buy tutoring services and more books and all kinds of materials. So in some sense, that kind of issue is, I think, a real one. That doesn't mean, however, that if you come from a lower socioeconomic status family that you can't achieve, that everything is against you, that the barriers and the obstacles are such that you can't achieve. I mean, I can tell you that for a fact. I'm one of those people myself. Okay, I come from a working class family. I have a PhD. My brother has a PhD. We have a medical. My brother has an MD degree. My brother has a law degree. We came from working class families. It is possible. Okay. I think it takes a dedicated interest on the part of the school to help. Just because parents are low working class, like in my own case, that doesn't also mean they're not interested in the education of their children. Having that desire, having that expectation that your children can achieve, no matter what your educational level or your socioeconomic status level is an important factor. But there has to be additional help and support from the school, from the community, in all kinds of ways to make that happen. What the superintendent said, I think, was wrong, inaccurate, and hopefully he's learned from that statement, because it's a terribly inaccurate statement, because it projects the feeling that everything is hopeless then if you come from a lower socioeconomic status family, and I can guarantee you it's not. Sometimes, however, it's very, very hard to overcome the obstacles, because one of the obstacles, somebody from the very top is saying you're never going to close the achievement gap, because then that sets the expectations for everyone down the line. That's part of what he was criticized for. Everyone has to have high expectations, beginning with the family, beginning with the students, beginning with the teachers, beginning with people in the community. People have to have the belief that they can achieve, and that others can achieve. And that begins to begin the circle of higher achievement. Okay, we have lots of material kinds of things that you can do. Okay, you can't buy the tutoring services that the people in Palo Alto can buy. They buy tutoring services of all different kinds for 13 years for their kids. Okay, which means if you can't do that, if you can't purchase those services, those auxiliary services, they have to come from somewhere else. They have to come from places like College Track, from other community organizations that are doing those kinds of things to enable the children in lower socioeconomic status families to achieve. So let me just start with that.
Well, the fact of the matter is that we know a great many students who are very disadvantaged, second language students, students from many cultures who are new to this country, and When they become focused and when they receive a lot of personal support, when they're with a lot of other young people who have the same goals that they have, where there is always personalized help that is open to them, when they take more than 1 or 2 classes at a time, they become more or less full-time students, and they get the kind of support that they need in order to believe in themselves academically. They're very successful. We have a great many students, about 50% of all our students who leave the college each year are going to go to CSU and Berkeley and Riverside and many, many colleges, and most of them are second language students. How did they do that? Well, they took advantage of the support systems that were there for them. There were families and friends who supported them along the way. There were groups of other young people just like themselves that they identified with, and they felt they were some part of something that transcended their own view of the world, and they got connected with these big ideas. Many of the disadvantaged students that I talk to, and again, we have very many, a lot of them talk about the fact that they wish they had taken the academic courses that they could have taken in high school. A lot of them will say, I never knew I could do this. Those messages were not very clear to them, and they didn't have the opportunities, I think most of them would say, to really understand that I can do physics and chemistry and second and third and fourth year math. The intellectual ability is there. The understanding that it's there and the willingness to embrace it and focus on the difficult things to be done, people have to have the opportunity to do that, and they need the support day after day to get them through it. But they get to the point, it's like trying to get to the top of the hill. It's a struggle to get there, but once you're there, it all begins to roll downhill, because suddenly you're focused, suddenly you believe in yourself, suddenly you know you've got the ability to do it. I want to say very quickly that there are a number of studies that have been done that demonstrate that when young people early on, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and so on, have really been engaged in reading and mastering that one step at a time, that when they track those students, and there are various places in America where they've done this, when they track those students all the way through high school, assuming of course they got into the right courses as they moved along, that the achievement gap, I'm beginning to hate that term, but that gap closes. It almost disappears. So to take the position that it can't be done is useless. Doesn't take you anywhere. So that's basically the long and the short of it. I want to say very quickly that from our standpoint, one of the major tragedies is that about 80% of the students coming to us cannot take, in their first year of college, a college level class in English or math. And if you step back and look at that as regards what it does to their goals, what it does to them personally, the kind of toll that it takes as regards this precious time that they have, most of them are working, you can see the impact of that. So I'm an advocate of early on identifying, and there are a lot of studies again that show you've got to get to it early. And you've got to be certain they're in the right classes, and you've got to be certain that they're getting the academic skills as early as possible and supporting them every step of the way. Now, I don't think it matters who you are. If those kinds of things are being done, when you get to college, you will be successful.